A recent guest on Joe Rogan's podcast is claiming that last month's school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, was actually a result of defund the police.
Argument that's like missing about the police is that the police don't train the way special operations train, but yet they're involved in combat scenarios on a regular basis.
Yeah, so what we're experiencing right now is a byproduct of what society has forced police to become. You know, they're demonizing military training for law enforcement. And then obviously we just experienced defund the police. And nearly every large city has seen a crazy rise in crime. And the ones that, these large cities that defunded their police, to include Austin, you know, we've never seen homicides like this. You know, getting the Chicago's and the Bostons, you're just like, holy, this is so scary. And how does it make any sense that I'm going to provide this group that I want to protect us with less training and less funding, but then still want them to be a better product to be able to protect us? And then the people that they're protecting, I'm going to disarm, so the people coming to save them are untrained and unprepared. It's creating this disastrous situation.
Okay, so look, he's talking about crime, right? Let's talk about crime. So look, corporate media loves to talk about crime rates. Oh, rising crime rates, right? Hey, look, understand, if it bleeds, it leads, right? And so, yes, corporate media loves these crime stories. Now, what is happening isn't really a crime wave, as in you think of people stealing like a bunch of TVs, or the people that are going in like stealing steaks. What is happening is there is a spike in violence, specifically gun violence. So now, again, what's going on here, when you get into the facts, it's much more nuanced and doesn't have anything to do with defund the police. So let's do that. Now, let's go with the murder rate, okay? So the FBI data recently released reveals the U.S. murder rate did rise sharply in 2019 and 2020, 2021. So we have seen increased murder rates. Now, crimes reported in communities across the country also show that half have seen their overall violent crime rates drop over the past decade. Now, due to major increases in some handful of cities, the average city did see an increase in overall violent crime rate of about 12% over the last decade. Now, for example, there's a lot of stuff that I'm throwing out here. But there were 3 cities in Indiana, and this is to show you how these national total crime rate percentages can get skewed by a few outliers. For example, 3 Indiana cities, Jasper, Shelbyville, and Warsaw, had their violent crime rates climb by over 1,000%. In fact, let's see. Jasper, Shelbyville, and Warsaw had the second highest increase among cities with available data, with the overall violent crime rate increasing there by 1,918%. So if you have that happen, it's going to skew the numbers just a little bit. Okay? Now, according to those numbers, in the nation's largest cities, you did have a slight increase in violent crime rates. But when it comes to property crime rates, it actually dropped by double digits over the last decade. The biggest cities in the U.S. tend to have higher crime rates because generally you have more people there. Okay? That tends to correlate, right? So, yeah, there's an increase in violent crimes. Now, does it have anything to do with defund the police? No, because, for one, very short experiment. In Austin, in 2020, they did cut millions from the police budget. Now, the same year, you could point out the fact that they saw a jump in homicide. They had 48 homicides in 2020, a 26% increase from the previous year. Now, in 2021, they put the funding back. And guess what happened? You had even more homicides. You had 70 in 2021, which is another increase. Now, overall, though, homicides, and again, going back to the news angle, right? They're actually lower than what the murder rate was back in the 80s and 90s, even though we've got this gigantic spike in the crime rates. Now, by the way, Going back to defund the police, Austin, he mentioned, wasn't the only one to have done it for a very temporary amount of time. Since the first quarter of 2020, over 30 major U.S. cities, including Austin, did see increases in the number of homicides, right? And shootings and other forms of interpersonal violence, with some seeing double-digit increases. Now, Austin was one of the ones that defunded the police temporarily. Here are some of the other ones. Baltimore, Milwaukee, LA, Austin, Portland, and Philadelphia. So now those cities must also have seen a gigantic increase in the crime rate, right? And happen to be, since they defunded their police, the most dangerous cities and the time that they were defunded, right? Well, no, let me give you the 10 most dangerous cities that were in 2021. Anchorage, Alaska. Pretty sure they didn't defund their police. Memphis, Tennessee. Lubbock, Texas. Detroit. Detroit's, again, it's one of the most dangerous cities, and they sure did not defund their police. Springfield, Missouri. San Francisco. San Mateo, Redford City, California. Corpus Christi, Texas. Shreveport City, Louisiana. Stockton, California. Bakersfield, California. Now, this is according to FBA data. Interesting. So, again, none of the cities listed as the most dangerous in 2021 defunded their police. And the ones that did defund their police, as I mentioned before, put their money back into the cops. Austin immediately refunded the money in 2021. Baltimore, another example of a, place that defunded their police, actually gave them more money. $28 million. That's more than they had actually taken out of the police. So understand that defunding the police hasn't done anything to exacerbate the crime wave that have been happening. Homicides have increased across the U.S., not just in places where they defunded police or where there were social justice protests or even any calls to defund. It's just been a national trend. And again, it's not really a crime wave. It's a wave of violence, which, yes, is a crime. But when you think, and this is sort of the sleight of hand that I notice, you hear crime wave and you think people stealing TVs or steaks. No, it's the murders. It's the gun violence that has increased. And by the way, at the same time, the spike in violence has disproportionately hit poor and minority communities, which makes you think it doesn't have anything to do with defund. It has everything to do with socioeconomic conditions, economic hardships, the pandemic. But no, this guy's going to sit here and blame defund the police. Now, the next video I have, Joe Rogan is going to talk about more about training and then ask another question.
So why is it so hard to get something implemented like a rigorous training course?
I think it's ignorance. I think the first thing is society, culture right now. We've been emasculating the law enforcement for a while. We want a kinder, softer, gentler, and I get they're dealing with mental health, and we can have specialists that can come in and deal with somebody having a mental health crisis. But we still need men and women that will run towards the sound of gunfire and know what to do.
Yeah.
And we don't right now. We have been weakening them, and we have been making them ill-equipped to respond to that. And then I think Uvalde is a great example of not properly trained with broken systems that are not ready to do the right thing. And we will have more of that unless we get them the right training and we get our schools to become hard targets, and then we go upstream to the origin, the genesis of these problems, which is mental health with the individual.
Oh, of course. See, it's just the mental health. That's all. We got a mental health and hardening schools. I wonder if this guy's a conservative. Now, this guy was a former Green Beret. So, let's let's break it down. Okay? Let's break it down. Because he's saying a lot of things that are just utter bullshit. Just complete garbage. All right? So now, here's the thing. Rogan asks, why is it so hard to get, rigorous training? Rigorous training. Now, the guy had talked about training, like, for example, combat situations. Why would you need to train police to be like a military when they're supposed to be police? This isn't Fallujah. Okay, this isn't supposed to be an occupation of the streets. Police should not be militarized or trained to be a military. Now, if you're somebody who believes in freedom, if you're somebody who believes that, hey man, we got to have our guns to stand up against the government, why would you also be in favor of then training the police to be like a military force? Who do you think the boot is going to step on first? Honestly. But I don't know, maybe they think the boot's going to be on their side. I don't know. But let's go to the next thing, right? So for one, police are not required to protect you. They're really not. The Supreme Court had affirmed that. So now if they're not protecting us, then what is their job? Their job is to protect capital. Their job is to protect property. Their job is to defend the elite. That's it. Then he claims we're emasculating law enforcement. How? Do you know what we've been doing? You know what that's called? It's called accountability. That's what it is. Holding them accountable when they murder unarmed people. And yes, they happen to murder unarmed black people at an incredibly high rate. They also kill unarmed white people. If you're a racist and all you care about is color, well, then that second part should alarm you as well. Oh my God, they're killing white people. Well, I didn't really care since it was, before it was black people, that's white people. No, you should care about all people. Insane. All right. Now, training. Let's get to the training, right? So, look, police are literally trained to shoot first if they feel their lives are in any sort of danger. Understand that cowardly police are not born, they are made, they are created, they are trained that way. In Uvalde, you had multiple departments, hundreds of police officers outside, and 19 stacked outside the door for over an hour. Okay? Knowing that children were dying inside, they could get the dispatch calls. Children were calling from inside the classroom, 911, please help us, we're dying. We're literally dying here. And they stood outside the door. They couldn't go in. They didn't go in. And this guy says, oh, it's because we emasculated them. Really? Really? How? Uvalde cops. Look, Uvalde cops, unless he's claiming that we hurt their feelings and that's why they didn't go in. Oh, I'm sorry, little snowflake. Did I hurt your goddamn feelings so much that you let 19 children and 3 adults get murdered inside that classroom? Well, you're some kind of real snowflake there, buddy. The worst kind. Or did he mean emasculate as in, well, we're not training them, we're not funding them? How? Uvalde cops had level 4 body armor that were capable of stopping rifle rounds. They had ballistic shielding. And by the way, they were fully funded. In January of this year, Uvalde police received $500,000. That's $532,565,000 Operation Lone Star grants. Those funds will be used to purchase 4 fully equipped police package Ford Explorers, 10 handheld portable Motorola radios, one of which the Uvalde chief had literally ditched. 4 thermal imaging binoculars and 26 Acer N3 rugged laptops. The remaining $207,921 will be used for officers and dispatchers to work overtime to assist other law enforcement agencies with the border crisis. Ah, that's where it went. Oh, we need overtime, we need double time, we need triple time, all this time for the border. Because the real danger It's the undocumented immigrants, the migrants that are escaping from brutal conditions in poverty, our drug war and gangs. That's a real problem, and not the mass shooters here in this country. Right. Okay. By the way, 37% of the city's general funding spending for fiscal year 2021 and 2022 of around $4.39 million was spent on police. 3% of that budget, and this comes from the general fund of the Uvalde police. I'm sorry, the Uvalde city budget. Okay, so there's the city budget, and then there's part of that budget is the general fund. 37% of it went to the police. The 40% number actually comes from, they combined it with animal control. But you still have the vast majority of that general fund. Well, I shouldn't say vast majority, but you have a big old chunk of that that general fund going to the cops. $4 million. $4 million. This guy, completely and totally full of crap. Totally full of crap. And again, at the end of the day, mental illness. That's what he says. Oh, no, we just got to do mental illness. And so, no pushback from Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is a bobblehead. No pushback at all. Oh, yeah, totally. You know what that says to me? Now, I played you the show, the episode where Joe Rogan claimed to be a lefty, right? Oh, I'm so liberal, and yet the liberals, they're coming after me all the time. I don't understand. I'm so incredibly liberal. No, you're not. You're not liberal. You can't sit there and say that you're on the left or you're a liberal and then agree 100% with every single thing your right-wing guest comes on and says without pushing back. You're saying that I agree with you. I agree with everything the right wing says. Everything. Rogan does it. Tim Pool does it. Others do it too. And you know why? There's a reason. It's not because they actually believe the right wing was right, although for Joe Rogan, he might just be dumb enough to actually believe that. No, they do it because their right-wing audience is huge. It's true. Look, for the left, we are way too factionalized. We don't spend all of our time online. We actually go and touch grass. But when it comes to the right-wing audience, they're always there. They're hooked. They're massively represented in online spaces. They're actually not a majority of the country. When you break it down issue by issue, progressive issues win. But they're not represented online. No, the majority of online spaces are white male. It's true. And so that's why you have commentators, personalities that are supposedly on the left, but not really on the left, end up eventually courting the right wing. One great example, Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin was one of the more blatant examples as well. He knew where the audience was. He knew where the money was. That's where most of the money is, on the right wing, appealing to right-wing audiences. Now, the rest of the money, of course, is in corporate media, but that's also not on the left. Not when it comes to economic issues. If they actually did that, they would have more progressives on TV, which they do not. But all it comes down to is audience capture and money.